Breathe with me for a moment. Just breathe. In the quiet of this breath, you might notice something stirring inside you. A gentle whisper. A subtle knowing that's been trying to catch your attention. That whisper holds a truth many of us have become masterful at ignoring. We've been living someone else's life. You're here today because deep down you feel it. That nagging sensation that life is passing by while you're standing still, trapped in the safety of what others expect from you. The monotonous rhythm of wake up, work, sleep, repeat has become your lullaby, numbing you to the extraordinary potential that pulses through your veins. Let me tell you about a conversation I had with a stranger on a park bench. She was impeccably dressed in her corporate attire, clutching her phone like a lifeline, tears streaming down her face. When I sat down, she didn't even try to hide them. "I just turned 33, she said, and I realized I've spent the last decade becoming everything my parents wanted me to be. I'm successful by every measure except the one that matters. I don't." Her words echo the silent scream residing in so many hearts. We've been conditioned to believe that our 30s are when we should have it all figured out. The career, the relationship, the house with the white picket fence, all neatly arranged like items on a universal checklist of success. But who wrote this checklist? Who decided that by 30, our dreams should fit into these predetermined boxes? The truth is, your 30s aren't a deadline, they're a doorway to the most authentic version of yourself, if only you're brave enough to turn the handle and step through. Think about it. How many of the choices you've made were truly yours? How many were subtle compromises, gentle surrenders to the expectations of family, society, or that harsh inner critic who borrowed its voice from everyone who ever told you to be realistic? You see, we've been sold a beautiful lie, that settling into a life that looks good on paper will somehow translate into feeling good in our soul. We convince ourselves that the dissatisfaction we feel is normal, that the yearning for something more is selfish or unrealistic. We tell ourselves that dreams are for the young, but here's what no one tells you. The most tragic form of loss isn't the loss of youth. It's the loss of your essence while youth slips away. It's waking up one day to realize you've become a stranger to yourself, expertly playing a role in a life that was never meant for you. I've sat with countless individuals who achieved everything society told them they should want, only to find themselves hollow inside. The high-powered executive who secretly dreams of opening a small bookstore. The successful lawyer who comes alive only when she's teaching art to children on weekends. The financial analyst whose hands itch to work with wood. These aren't stories of failure. They're stories of awakening. Each person reached a point where the pain of remaining the same finally exceeded the fear of change. And that's the beautiful paradox of our 30s. We're young enough to start over, but old enough to do it wisely. Your true self isn't lost, it's waiting. It's in the dreams you've dismissed as impractical, the ideas you've labeled as crazy, the passions you've set aside for someday. It's in the moments when you feel most alive, most connected, most authentically you. Those moments aren't accidents. They're glimpses of your real nature breaking through the carefully constructed facade. We often speak of finding ourselves as if we're lost items waiting to be discovered. But the truth is, finding yourself isn't about discovery, it's about recovery. It's about peeling back the layers of shoulds and musts, of expectations and compromises, until you uncover the person you were before the world told you who to be. Think back to your childhood dreams. Not to reclaim them exactly as they were, but to remember the person who dared to dream them. That person didn't care about market viability or 5-year plans. That person didn't need permission to imagine a life that made their hearts sing. That person knew with unshakable certainty that person is still you. Beneath the responsibilities, beneath the carefully crafted image, beneath the weight of all your adult compromises, that authentic, daring, alive version of you is waiting. And your 30s aren't too late to set them free. In fact, they might be the perfect time. Because now you have something you didn't have in your 20s. Wisdom. You've learned what truly matters to you. You've experienced enough to know the difference between fleeting excitement and genuine passion. You've developed resilience, resourcefulness, and a deeper understanding of who you are and what you value. The journey to your true self isn't about abandoning everything you've built. It's about realigning it with who you really are. It's about making conscious choices rather than accepting default settings. It's about recognizing that authenticity isn't a destination, but a practice. A daily commitment to honoring your truth, even when it makes others uncomfortable. Fear will tell you that change at this stage is irresponsible. It will whisper that you've invested too much time in your current path to change direction now. But consider this. Every moment you spend living inauthentically is an investment in regret. Every day you choose safety over truth adds another brick to the wall between you and the most dangerous prison isn't built with bars, it's built with comfortable compromises. It's constructed from phrases like, maybe next year, and what would people think? Its walls are reinforced with every time we swallow our dreams and call it maturity. But here's the truth that society doesn't want you to realize. Stability without fulfillment is just stagnation in disguise. Let me share something profound that happened in a coffee shop last week. The barista, hair streaked with gray, hands weathered from years of crafting perfect lattes, told me she had just enrolled in medical school. Everyone thinks I'm crazy, she said, her eyes bright with purpose. They say I'll be 45 by the time I finish. Then she smiled and said something that changed the room. I'll be 45 anyway. The only difference is whether I'll be 45 and living my dream, or 45 and still wondering, what if? And she turned around, stepping into frame with soft steps. And just then, the Elon bus stopped. That's the kind of wisdom that only comes when you've lived enough to understand that time passes regardless of how we spend it. The question isn't whether you're too old to change. The question is whether you're willing to spend another decade pretending to be someone you're not. Your true self doesn't come with an expiration date. It doesn't care about industry standards or societal timelines. It operates on its own clock, measuring time not in years, but in moments of authenticity. Every time you honor your truth, every time you choose courage over comfort, you're not just changing your life, you're healing your relationship with yourself. Think about the messages we internalize about age and possibility. We celebrate 20-somethings who take risks, calling them brave and innovative. But when someone in their 30s or beyond makes the same choice, suddenly it's labeled as a crisis. We've created this artificial deadline for dreams, this imaginary point of no return. But life doesn't work that way. Your soul doesn't care about these arbitrary timelines. The path to your true self isn't always about grand gestures or dramatic changes. Sometimes it starts with small acts of courage. Maybe it's speaking up in a meeting when you'd usually stay silent. Perhaps it's taking that art class you've been eyeing for years. It might be as simple as admitting to yourself that the life you've built, while comfortable, isn't. Consider the cost of not changing. Consider the weight of carrying around a life that doesn't fit anymore. Consider the energy it takes to maintain a facade, to keep playing a role that you've outgrown. That energy, that life force, is meant for creation, not preservation. It's meant for growth, not... Your true self is not something you need to create. It's something you need to allow. It's already there, beneath the layers of should and must, waiting for permission to emerge. And here's the beautiful truth. You don't need anyone's permission but your own. The journey to authenticity requires a different kind of courage than the one that got you here. It's not the courage to achieve or acquire. It's the courage to be seen, to be vulnerable, to be real. It's the courage to disappoint people who are invested in the version of you that no longer fits. It's the courage to be a beginner again, to not know, to make mistakes. But here's what makes this journey worth every uncertain step. The moment you start moving toward your true self, the universe conspires to help you. Doors open that you didn't even know existed. People appear who support your vision. Resources materialize in unexpected ways. Not because of some magical thinking, but because when you're aligned with your authentic path, your 30s can be the decade where you finally come home to yourself, where you stop apologizing for your dreams and start pursuing them with the wisdom that only life experience can bring, where you understand that success without fulfillment is the ultimate failure, and that true security comes not from external achievements, but from an unshakable connection to your authentic self. The world needs people who have come alive. It needs people who have the courage to break free from the mold and live from their truth. Because here's something we often forget. Your authentic self isn't just a gift to you, it's a gift to the world. When you live true to yourself, you give others permission to do the same. Your courage becomes contagious. Your authenticity creates ripples that touch lives you may never meet. The journey to your true self isn't about becoming someone new. It's about unbecoming everything that isn't really you. It's about shedding the layers of protection that once served you but now constrain you. It's about remembering who you were before the world told you who you should be. There's a particular kind of pain that comes from living a life that's too small for your spirit. It's not the sharp pain of tragedy or the dull ache of disappointment. It's the quiet suffering of potential unfulfilled. It shows up in those moments when you're alone with your thoughts, in the space between what you do and what you dream of doing. But that pain isn't your enemy, it's your ally. It's the voice of your true self refusing to be silenced. Every moment of discomfort, every feeling of restlessness, every bout of unexplained sadness is actually a call to awakening. These aren't signs of failure. They're signs that you're ready for more. Let me tell you about a conversation that changed everything for someone. She was sitting in her corner office, surrounded by awards and accolades, feeling completely empty inside. Success, by society's standards, had become her prison. She had everything she thought she wanted, but none of what she actually needed. One morning, she looked at her reflection in her office window and asked herself a simple question. If nobody had expectations of me, who would I choose to be? That question became her compass. It led her through the terrifying process of dismantling a life that looked perfect on paper to build one that felt perfect in her soul. Was it easy? No. Was it worth it? She says it was like finally breathing after holding her breath for decades. The truth about finding your authentic self in your 30s is that you're not starting from scratch, you're starting from experience. Every wrong turn, every mistake, every detour has given you crucial information about who you are and who you're not. Your journey so far hasn't been a waste, it's been research and development for the life you're about to create. Think about the stories you tell yourself about why you can't change. I have responsibilities. I have obligations. People depend on me. These aren't just statements, they're prison bars you've built around your potential. Yes, you have responsibilities, but your greatest responsibility is to live authentically. Yes, you have obligations, but your first obligation is to your own truth. Yes, people depend on you, but they depend on the real you, not the carefully constructed version you present to the world. The cost of staying safe is simply too high. Every time you deny your true nature, every time you choose security over authenticity, you're not just disappointing yourself, you're robbing the world of your unique gift. Because here's what we often forget. Your true self isn't just about you. It's about the impact only you can have, the lives only you can touch, the problems only you can solve in your unique way. Consider this. What if your struggle to fit into the life you've built isn't a sign of failure, but a sign of growth? What if your discomfort is actually your soul's way of telling you that you're ready for more? What if the very things you think are holding you back, your age, your responsibilities, your past choices, are actually preparing you for your next level of growth? The journey to authenticity requires a fundamental shift in how we think about success. Success isn't about accumulating achievements or reaching arbitrary milestones by certain ages. True success is about alignment, the alignment between who you are and how you live. It's about creating a life that feels right from the inside, not one that just looks right from the outside. Your 30s are not a deadline, they're a launching pad. This is the decade where you have both the wisdom to know what you want and the energy to pursue it. You've lived enough to know what doesn't work, but you're young enough to have the time to build what does. You have experience, but you're not jaded. You have responsibilities, but you're not trapped by them. Now, the path to your true self isn't always linear. Sometimes it involves taking 2 steps forward and 1 step back. Sometimes it means letting go of things you thought were permanent to make room for things that are truly meant for you. Sometimes it means standing alone, trusting that your authenticity will eventually. Remember this. Every person who has ever made a meaningful impact in the world first had to make the choice to be true to themselves. Every movement, every innovation, every positive change started with someone deciding that living authentically was more important than living safely. Your journey to authenticity isn't just about personal fulfillment. It's about contributing your unique gift to the world. The world doesn't need more people living lives of quiet desperation. It needs people who have the courage to listen to their inner voice, who are willing to risk comfort for meaning, who understand that their unique perspective and gifts are not. Your 30s can be the decade where you finally give yourself permission to be fully, unapologetically yourself. Where you stop asking for permission to take up space in the world, where you understand that your differences aren't flaws to be fixed, but gifts to be expressed. Where you realize that the very things that make you different are the journey to authenticity isn't about reaching a destination. It's about returning to a truth you've always known, but might have forgotten. It's about remembering that you didn't come into this world to live up to other people's expectations. You came here to express something that only you can express. The most profound truth about transformation is this: change happens in the present moment, not in some distant future when everything is perfectly aligned. Your true self emerges not when you're ready, but when you're willing. Willingness opens doors that perfect planning never could. Every morning when you wake up, you have a choice. You can continue living the script that's been written for you, or you can begin writing your own story. The beautiful thing about being in your 30s is that you finally have the wisdom to write a story worth telling. One that's true to who you really are, not who you think you should be. There was a musician who spent 15 years building a successful corporate career because music wasn't a practical choice. Every morning he would pass by his guitar case, collecting dust in the corner of his room. That guitar case became a symbol of everything he had sacrificed for security. One day he realized that his security had become his cage. He started small, playing at open mic nights, writing songs during lunch breaks, teaching music on weekends. Today he runs a thriving music school, helping others reconnect with their creativity. His income is half of what it used to be, but his life is twice as rich. The path to authenticity isn't about making dramatic declarations or burning bridges. It's about making small, conscious choices every day that align with your truth. It's about learning to listen to the quiet voice within that knows who you really are and what you're really meant to do. Consider the relationships in your life. How many of them support your authentic self? How many of them require you to be smaller than you really are? The journey to authenticity often reveals which connections are based on who you pretend to be and which ones are anchored in who you really are. Some relationships will fall away, and that's okay. They're making room for connections that match your truth. Your true self isn't something you need to search for in distant places or extraordinary experiences. It's right here, in the ordinary moments of your life. It's in the things that light you up, the work that makes you lose track of time, the causes that stir your heart, the dreams that won't let you go, no matter how many times you try to dismiss them. The greatest gift you can give yourself in your 30s is permission. Permission to be a beginner again, permission to be imperfect, permission to not have all the answers. Because here's what we often forget. Expertise in one area of life doesn't make starting over in another area any less valuable. Your previous experiences aren't a cage, they're a foundation. Think about the stories you tell yourself about time. It's too late. I should have figured this out sooner. I've already invested so much in this path. These stories are based on a fundamental misunderstanding of how life works. Time will pass whether you choose to live authentically or not. The only question is whether you'll use that time to move closer to or further from your truth. Your body knows when you're living inauthentically. It shows up as tension, as fatigue, as a constant sense of being slightly off-center. These aren't signs of weakness, they're signs of wisdom. Your body is telling you what your mind might be afraid to admit. That you're ready for more, that you're capable of more, that you're meant for more. The journey to authenticity requires a new relationship with fear. Fear will always be present when you're moving towards something meaningful. The goal isn't to eliminate fear, it's to stop letting fear make your decisions. Fear is a natural response to growth, but it shouldn't be your compass. Your true self emerges in layers, like peeling an onion in reverse. Each layer you add brings you closer to who you really are. Sometimes this means rediscovering parts of yourself you abandoned years ago. Sometimes it means discovering entirely new aspects of yourself that the beauty of finding yourself in your 30s is that you have enough life experience to appreciate the journey. You understand that transformation isn't just about reaching a destination, it's about who you become in the process. You have the maturity to know that every step toward authenticity, no matter how small, is progress. Consider the legacy you want to leave. Not just the tangible achievements, but the energy you want to put into the world. When you live authentically, you create a ripple effect that touches everyone around you. Your courage becomes permission for others to be courageous. Your authenticity becomes an invitation for others to be authentic. The world needs your true self, not the polished, perfect version you think you should be, but the real, messy, authentic version of who you are. Because here's the truth. Your struggles, your doubts, your journey, these aren't obstacles to your purpose. They are your purpose. They're part of the unique gift only you can offer the world. The deepest truth about transformation is that it happens now, in this moment, in the choices you make today. Your true self isn't waiting in some distant future. It's waiting in your next decision, your next word, your next action. It's waiting in your courage to finally say yes to yourself. There was someone who spent years collecting degrees and certifications, thinking that the next achievement would finally make them feel complete. Their office walls were covered with diplomas, but their heart was empty of purpose. One day, while volunteering at a local shelter, something they did purely for joy, they had an epiphany. The fulfillment they'd been chasing through achievements was already there, in the simple act of doing what felt genuine and true. Your true self speaks to you in the language of joy, of enthusiasm, of deep resonance. It's in those moments when time seems to stop, when you're so aligned with what you're doing that you forget to check your phone or watch the clock. These moments aren't accidents, they're glimpses of your authentic path. The most powerful question you can ask yourself isn't, "What should I do with my life?" but, "What would I do if I trusted myself completely?" Because deep down, beneath the layers of doubt and conditioning, you already know. Your heart has been trying to tell you all along, in whispers and nudges, in dreams and desires you've dismissed as impractical. Transformation isn't about becoming someone new. It's about having the courage to be who you've always been. Every time you've felt like a misfit, every time you've had to force yourself to fit in, every time you've felt that subtle wrongness in the pit of your stomach, that wasn't a sign of your failure to adapt. It was your authentic self refusing to be compromised. The path to authenticity requires a new kind of strength. Not the strength to power through or push harder, but the strength to remain soft in a world that wants to harden you. The strength to stay open when it would be easier to close. The strength to keep listening to your inner voice when everyone around you is telling you to be practical. Your life isn't a dress rehearsal. There's no practice run, no draft version where you can play it safe until you're ready for the real thing. This is the real thing. Right now, today. Every moment you spend waiting for permission, waiting for certainty, waiting for the perfect time, is a moment of your authentic life slipping away. The greatest regret people express at the end of their lives isn't about the risks they took. It's about the risks they didn't take. The dreams they didn't pursue, the words they didn't speak, the love they didn't express, the truth they didn't live. Your 30s aren't a crisis point, they're a culmination point, a point where your life experience meets your energy, where your wisdom meets your strength, where your knowledge of who you are meets your power to do something about it. This is your time, not because society says so, but because you're ready. Ready to stop playing small, ready to stop hiding, ready to let your light shine in its full, magnificent brilliance. The world doesn't need your perfection. It needs your authenticity. It needs your unique perspective, your particular way of seeing things, your special way of solving problems. The very things you've been trying to fix about yourself might be exactly what the world needs. Every great transformation in history started with one person deciding to be true to themselves. Every movement, every innovation, every positive change began with someone choosing authenticity over acceptance. Your journey to authenticity isn't just about you, it's about the ripple effect you create when you live your truth. The price of denying your authentic self is too high. It costs you your peace, your joy, your sense of purpose. It costs you the deep satisfaction of knowing that you're living your own life, not someone else's version of what your life should be. Your true self is calling you home. Home to your genuine interests, not what's impressive on a resume. Home to your real talents, not just what's marketable. Home to your authentic voice, not the one you've learned to use to please others. The journey to authenticity is the journey of a lifetime, but it begins with a single step. One decision to honor your truth. One choice to follow your heart. One moment of courage to say, "This is who I am, and this is what I'm here to do." You don't need more time, you don't need more resources, you don't need more credentials or validation or permission. You just need the courage to be who you already are, to live what you already know is true, to do what you already feel called to. Every moment of doubt, every criticism, every setback on this path is not a sign to turn back. It's an invitation to go deeper, to trust more fully, to commit more completely to your authentic journey. Your true self is not a destination you reach. It's a truth you live, one day at a time, one choice at a time, one moment at a time. And that journey begins now, in this moment, with your next choice.